There are times when we are called upon to write an interval above or below a certain pitch, but the task is complicated because there is no standard key signature associated with the lowest pitch. For example, to write a perfect fifth above a G sharp, we would first write a pitch a fifth above the G sharp. The next step, of course, is to check the accidental of the upper note by writing or imagining the key signature of G sharp. However, this will prove to be rather difficult, as there is no standard key signature for the key of G sharp. A simple solution is to temporarily alter the lower note so that it represents an easier key, and then create the interval in that easier key. In this case, we will write a perfect interval above G natural. And it will be easy to check the accidental of the upper note of this interval because the key of G has only one sharp on F sharp. And this will have no bearing on the perfect fifth interval at hand. The final step is to return to the original task and adjust the accidentals accordingly. Since we know that the interval from G to D is a perfect fifth, we also know that the interval from G sharp up to D sharp is also a perfect fifth. Just keep in mind that if you alter both notes of an interval by the same amount, the identity of the intervallic distance will not change. Therefore, we will return the G to G sharp, as in the original example, and also raise the upper note a half step to D sharp. Let's take a look at a few more of these more difficult intervals in which the bottom note really can't be represented by a key. We'll start with this pitch here. This is a F flat. And we're going to ask to write the interval of a perfect fifth going above that note. Now ordinarily what we would do is we would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we would write the key signature of the lowest note. But if you recall our key signatures, there is no key of F flat. Not all the pitches, unfortunately, not all the pitches have a key associated with them that we've memorized. So here is how you handle this. You take off the accidentals temporarily and you solve the problem for the easy note. So in this case, even though we're trying to write the interval of a perfect fifth above an F flat, we're going to ignore the accidentals and we're going to try to figure out a perfect fifth above an F. And then we can adjust everything later. We do know the key signature of F. It's 1 flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So a perfect fifth above an F is a C because there's no accidental on the C. The only accidental is on the B flat. So from F to C is exactly what we expect. Now what we do, once we've solved this problem for F to C, we return and bring back the flat. Just remember that if you've established a perfect fifth here, and if you want to keep it as a perfect fifth, then you have to do the exact same thing to the bottom note as the top note. So if you're going to bring a flat to the F, then you also have to bring a flat to the C. And in that case, that interval will be a perfect fifth. Here's another way of thinking of it. Let's say you were just measuring the size of, let's say we were inside a room, and this is the floor, and this is the ceiling, and you're measuring the distance. Let's say that's the distance from the F to the C, and that's the distance of a perfect fifth, let's say. But what you really wanted was a floor that was a little bit lower. Well, you can see if you want the distance to be the same, then the ceiling would have to be a little bit lower, so that the distance between here and here would be the same distance as the original. And that's really what you're doing with these intervals. You're just playing a little game with them. Let's try another one. Let's start with a pitch G sharp. Now let's try to write the interval of a major sixth. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So how are we going to figure out what note to put there? What we would like to do is write a key signature for the lowest pitch, which is G sharp. But again, the problem is there is no key signature for G sharp. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did up there. We're going to temporarily ignore the accidentals and solve the problem without accidentals. So we'll go ahead and write the key signature not for G sharp, but for G. And we'll write our scale degrees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And none of these have a sharp because that's an F sharp. So from G to E is a major sixth. Okay. Now that we've determined that, we can go back and return the accidentals. So we return that sharp, but if we're going to raise that note and keep it as a major sixth, we'll also have to raise the top note to keep it as a major sixth so that it will retain its size. Shall we try one more? Let's say we're starting with a pitch A sharp. And what we're trying to write is a major third. Okay, I'm going to do this as a melodic interval just so that you can see it a little bit better. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. All right, well, we got the third, but we don't know if it's supposed to be C, C flat, C sharp, whatever. We don't know. What we would like to do to figure that out is write the key signature of A sharp and find out, but there is no such thing as a key signature of A sharp. So what should we do? As we've been doing, we will temporarily remove the accidental and solve it for the note without the accidental. In this case, that's an A. So we will write the key signature of A. And we'll solve the problem by writing up a major third above an A. Now, according to the key signature, A, natural, B, natural, there are no sharps, but there is a C sharp. Okay. So we can see that from the note A to C sharp is a major third. From A to C sharp is a major third. But recall that that was not the original question. The question is, what about a major third above an A sharp? So we're going to have to raise that bottom note up a half step. Remember, as we've been doing here in these other examples, if we're going to raise the bottom note up a half step, you also have to raise the top note up a half step. What is a C sharp when you raise it up another half step? We still have to keep it as a third, so it has to be some kind of a C. Can you think of what happens when you take a C, raise it up a half step, and it's still some kind of a C? Maybe you'll recall that we do have a tool for that. We're going to return the A to A sharp and raise it. And for the C sharp, we're going to have to double sharp it. We'll have to raise it again. And that will retain the distance from here to here. And we can call this a major third. So that's the answer. At this point in time, you're ready for Check Your Understanding 9.3. And here you have some examples of some rather difficult intervals in which the bottom note is a note that does not have a key signature that you can use to represent it. Remember, to solve the problem, you remove the sharp, solve for the easier note without the sharp or flat, and then bring that back, but just make sure you do the same thing to the top and bottom note. Okay, that's on page 104. And once you've finished that, you'll be ready for the homework on page 107, in which we have some rather difficult notes, and you can try to write the pitch that represents that interval above.